Welcome to No BS Game Guides. Today we will focus on some fundamental knowledge anyone should have to play Auto Gladiators without any confusion. By the end of this video you will learn everything there is to know about sects, how to counter each other, and I will show you an example build for a certain gladiator to get an idea of how you should think when you're picking abilities. I like to separate sects into two different categories. Number 1, the gathering sects, and number 2, the spender sects. The gathering sects are those who will grant you stacks dependable and fast, and the spenders are sects that will grant you different effects depending on how many stacks you have. Every build starts by choosing which will be your main source of damage. If your build is depending on poison stacks, you should have a plan on how to build lots of poison stacks. If your build is dependent on you casting your ultimate, you should gather lots of mana regen and so on. The gathering sects are critical, HP loss, ward, evade and ultimate. What makes those 5 sects better than the other to gather resources is that they give you stacks faster and more dependable. In fact, they will give you guarantee stacks every time they trigger their effect, in contrast with the other sects that will only have 30% chance. For example, an HP loss card will give you 33 stacks of poison every 400 HP loss guaranteed, but a regen card will give you only 18 stacks with 30% chance, which is very low. The stacks that you want to gather depending on the build is poison, injury, frost, fury, shield, mana regen and health regen. Poison will damage your opponent every second, bypassing every defense he might have. Injury on the other hand has to be triggered to deal damage, so apart from stacking injury to your opponent, you will also need something that hits rapidly to actually utilize these stacks and damage your opponent. Frost is a sect that you will choose as a main sect on specific gladiators that their abilities benefit from it. Other than that, Frost can boost your poison damage with Toxin Frost ability card and of course will slow your enemy. Fury will give you rapid mana regeneration plus attack speed, and with its golden ability card Inner Fire can be used for damage, but right now on my experience you would like to stack Fury only on Fury focused gladiators that their spells benefit from it. Shield will reduce some of the damage you take depending on your stack and will also counter some of the injury damage you're about to take. Ultimate is a sect that will give you mana regen and more damage to your ulti. When gathering it though, it will only give you mana regen. So, someone whose build is depending on casting ulti, but they don't depend on their ultimate damage, can gather mana regen without focusing on 20 or 40 points on ultimate sect. And health regen of course will heal you each time it procs. Here is a list with every gathering ability card per sect that I suggest you to print screen or memorize to help you plan your build faster. At this point I want to mention that not all the gathering sects are equally balanced. Of course it depends on the gladiator you are playing with, but in general HP loss is the most dependable since one way or another you will lose HP. Critical is currently the best because it will also give you one-shot potential. Ward and evade are both good, but they are weak against one-shots since they need more time to build up stacks, and ultimate doesn't even deserve to be on the list of gatherers. Moving on, I will show you an example on how you should think and how you should proceed with your strategy from the beginning to the end of the game. Step 1 is to know what your gladiator's winning condition is. In this example, I have Skywrath Mage and I know that he has a very specific build that is dependent on hitting criticals with his ultimate to apply stacks very rapidly. By the time he casts his first ulti, every hit that will crit will provide him with health regen and maybe shield stacks for sustain. Other than that, he will utilize every on-crit hit effect is available in the current game. First, I identify my keycard, which is Mana Blast from the critical tree that will make my ultimate hits be able to crit, and all the on-hit crit effects with focus on Burst of Regeneration and maybe Burst Shield for sustain. Since this is a critical dependent build, I know that I have to reach high critical chance and the only way to do that is Eagle Eye Boost, War Frenzy and high critical sect level. Starting the game, I will pick every single critical card without refreshing the shop until I reach 10 levels of critical or 1000 gold economy to have a chance to find a purple ability card. At this time, I will have to focus on acquiring Mana Blast, which is extremely mandatory for the build, Eagle Eye Boost and War Frenzy, which means I will have to ignore every other ability card no matter how useful it may be later in the game. If I'm getting no luck with purple abilities at 10 points, I will force my way to 20 points to improve my chances. I know that without Mana Blast this build cannot work at all, but if I manage to complete my build even with 1 HP left, I can win streak and finally win the game. When you find your Mana Blast, your next goal is to reach 10 level for your second passive with focus on regen Sect. After that, for some rounds, you can slow roll, which means you can roll all your extra gold without breaking your 1000 gold economy and try to pick up as many on crit gathering abilities as you can with focus on burst of regeneration. Of course, you should never skip any legendary ability cards that may appear. And finally, you will reach a point where you just need to hit level 15 for your last passive. At this point, I like to spend all of my gold completely, since my build is full and the only thing left is some levels. Of course, I will prioritize critical, since I have to reach 40 points, then at least 20 points on healing, and for the last levels I will pick whatever it will give me enough points to level up the rest of my sects. In short, build your 1000 gold economy while picking up main sect ability cards. After level 10, reroll your extra gold to find only the necessary ability cards and ignore the rest. Push to reach 20 points of your main sect if you're getting close to it for better chances. Reach level 10 for your passive. Find some secondary key cards for your build and finally reach level 15. And this is how most of the builds are working right now. I will try to post separate videos with more specific builds and how they work, so make sure to subscribe if you would like to see them. Lastly, to close this video, I will mention some Sect Counters that you should have in mind. Evasion can counter every on-hit build that builds up slowly. It is also a good choice against injury builds, since they will have hard time triggering these injury stacks if they can't land a hit on you. It's getting vulnerable though at the final stages of the game to one-shot critical builds because it doesn't have enough time to stack evasion. Critical is the strongest sect right now and will win most of the games either on an on-hit crit builds or ultimate crit builds, but in theory you can counter it with Frost. You can freeze your opponent completely, and since their build is most likely a glass cannon, you can kill them faster than they can. Health is a good counter to glass cannon builds as well if you manage to find Life Break golden ability card, which will reduce your opponent's health almost in half, and combining this with Blood of Magic will guarantee you an ultimate cast that might finish off your opponent. Regen builds will give you a fair chance against one-shot builds with the help of False Promise golden ability card, which will give you 2.5 seconds to kill the enemy before he bursts you out. Other than that, Regen is the best defense choice against poison builds. And of course, Ward is countered by both poison, injury and ultimate builds, since they bypass them completely, but they can be useful against heavy auto attackers and can even one-shot them with the help of Fearless Charge purple ability card. You should have in mind that this is a very general counter list and that the game varies a lot depending on every gladiator's kit. I suggest you to learn the offensive side of every gladiator and focus on how you will deal damage to kill their opponents more than how to defend against them. And that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope you liked it. Always leave a comment with your thoughts, subscribe, and see you on the next video.